I think we are ready to begin. We're not waiting for anyone.
Yeah, fire away, Lisa. I may have to drop off at 11:30, so.
Okay, so we have Bill McGowan, Wayne Sawchuk, John Beck, Pam Fahey, Dan Coughlin, Rod Hoffman, and Rob Scott and Katie Dugan as panelists. And on attendees, we have Karen Canfield, Bob Higgins, Tim Davis, and William Branton. And first up on the agenda is the regional.
Yeah, do we want to just pick a date for our next meeting so we can get that out of the way? The 11th of August, would that be okay with everyone?
8/11,
Yeah.
good for me.
It will be good. Let's see.
8/11 at 10.
Yep, that's okay. That works.
Yep. Good.
Okay.
So why don't we go on to the regional sewer discussion? And so Tim, I think, is calling in, and Katie's online here. They had asked to join, and I welcomed them to talk about not only the letter that came out from Woodard and Curran regarding the regional sewer piece, but also to have them voice their thoughts on what they can do to assist and just their general thoughts overall. So I know, Katie, you've got a hard stop soon. So do you want to take control?
That would be great. Lisa, do you mind promoting Tim Davis to a panelist?
Oh, sure.
Thanks. So thank you for your time this morning. So I am here from the Master Plan Implementation Committee. My role currently this year is as chair of that committee. We were constituted as a committee back in November, December of 2019, and appointments were made in December and January. Our first meeting was back in January of this year. And really, just a quick overview on master plan implementation and why it connects in with regional sewer. So I sent to you guys as background materials what we presented to the planning board and to the board of selectmen. Both of those materials are in the packet. I'm happy to go through as much of it as you want, but really the focus of the conversation today is around how we can coordinate and help to the extent needed relative to regional sewer. So as quick background, the master plan process, as you guys know, has been ongoing. It started in 2016 with a visioning process that was completed by the planning board with the assistance of the MAPC, which is a regional planning nonprofit for the state, but also a consulting firm. In phase 2, we actually worked on the master plan report itself. And I was on that committee as a school committee liaison for the first 2 years, and then just continued as a citizen at large. That process culminated in the master plan, which was approved by the planning board. From a statutory perspective, the master plan is a document that the planning board approves and has statutory responsibilities for. Obviously, the Board of Selectmen and others are interested in it. And since we had so many planning efforts going on at the time, we were in heavy coordination with Tim Davis and the Harbor, Peter Pescatori and Open Space and Rec, and then also with affordable housing. They were kind of last to the table and were working on their housing production plan. So that wrapped up in June 2019, and then we took a bit of a pause that summer And then the Board of Selectmen in phase 3 of this constituted really what is the implementation committee, the Master Plan Implementation Committee, which will continue for the next decade or so. The idea behind the master plan is that it actually will continue for a substantial period of time. In the pre-reading, you saw what the charter was for the Master Plan Implementation Committee, and it really kind of has 3 critical components. One is communication, which we are starting to do in terms of communicating not only with the key boards, but also broadly with the community around what the priorities are. You know, the second big piece of our job is coordination, and that's coordination not only in terms of making sure that people know what the priorities are, but also assisting and working with boards who have the statutory responsibility for various initiatives. And then last but not least is really being the committee that can go back to the planning board and to the Board of Selectmen who have sort of statutory oversight of the implementation process and asking for specific resources. And so if you saw at annual town meeting, there was a small amount of money that was put aside in the one-time allocations for consulting resources. And we anticipate that going forward, as we begin the implementation process, we will need to tap into that and be able to augment what is the resources we have between town employees and town committees to really get the work done. In terms of the process that we went through, so we took 6 months with a short break for COVID to really go through the plan itself and have conversations with a variety of committees and stakeholders, and doing our own work to try and figure out what the implementation, or at least the initial implementation priorities should look like. You know, if you saw in the pre-reading, I mean, the document itself, the master plan is quite comprehensive and far-reaching. There's 9 chapters. There's like something like 140 implementation strategies that we would endeavor over an extended period of time, a decade, to attempt to work through as a community. And as we go through this process, we recognize that some of the things that were identified in 2019 may not be relevant for implementation as we go forward, you know, 5, 7, 10 years. Part of our job is to keep on making this a living document. So if you have the presentation in front of you, and I don't know, Lisa, whether you can pop it up on the screen. Really what I wanted to focus on was slide 7, which is the implementation recommendations. Do you have that PDF, Lisa?
I do.
Okay. And so what we did was really try and boil this down. And frankly, the more work we did, the more we recognized that there were really 5 top priorities that we saw for the town in terms of implementation. And the reality is that the common denominator across all of these, because they obviously touch on different chapters and different aspects of the master plan, was the fact that all of these had some amount of urgency to them. And that urgency in many cases was actually being driven by external factors, so that the town, whether it liked it or not, was going to have to address these implementation priorities. The second reason that we focused on these top 5 priorities was the fact that many of them had a high level of dependencies. And what we mean by that is that there are a number of parties that are either impacted or will need to work together in order to be able to implement these specific implementation priorities successfully. And then in many cases, they were actually high dollar, not necessarily all of them, but many of them actually had a significant price tag, which again, sort of added to the need for us to begin to address them now. If we were going to put in place we were going to actually be able to implement this, we'd be needing to look at grants and other funding sources. So the priorities we identified were around affordable housing and ADA compliance. And affordable housing really centers around the fact that we have this safe harbor measurement coming up under 40B that will take place based on the 2020 census sometime in fiscal 2021. The second goal related to economic development, and this is really a desire that was expressed in the planning process, both in the harbor plan, but also in the master plan, to seek opportunities for the town to really be able to address opportunities as it relates to specific economic development in the village, harbor, and then in some cases along 3A. And obviously we recognize as a committee that there are actually some short-term critical needs relative to helping these businesses survive relative to the COVID crisis and the impact that's had. Third was relative to zoning review. And this is really one of the things that was stark in both the visioning process, but also as we went through the master plan process, was how much the town has developed. If you look back to the 2003 plan, which was the last master plan that the town of Cohasset completed, there were 1,000 buildable lots at the time. And during the period of 2003 to 2016, 17, 18, when we were putting the plan together, over half of those lots, so 500 units of housing, were added to the town of Cohasset. And we did our analysis around additional land use. There were really 470 or so future potential build outs. And to the extent that that build out was going to happen, if we were going to impact that and in many cases look at retaining the character of the town, we would need to undergo zoning bylaw changes. And so the goal there is really to do something that has not been done in recent history in Cohasset, which is really step back and look at the package of zoning bylaws and think holistically about them in terms of how we want to change that, or if we want to change that as we go through kind of this final build out. And the reason that we're here today, and part of the conversation, was around regional sewer. And this was acknowledged in the master plan, but I think as we as a committee got more up to speed on the regional sewer conversations that your committee has been critical in, we recognize that we were at a critical juncture point in terms of making a decision relative to Cohasset's participation or not in a regional sewer conversation, and that there were dependencies relative to land use. There were dependencies relative to obviously the services that were being offered to the town. And there were some significant environmental benefits that could be attributed by getting North Situate on a sewer system. And then last but not least was the Elm Street Corridor. And this is really driven by a couple different factors. One is the fact that there's already a development plan underway that's being reviewed by the planning board for the Cohasset Harbor Inn, which would open up a viewscape opportunity. We're not talking in the Elm Street Corridor priority about that specific development. That already has a defined process that is being driven by the planning board. What we're really talking about is what happens to the public way from Main Street down Elm Street to that Harbor Inn redevelopment, and what we want to do as a community in order to better connect the village and the harbor, sort of tying back into economic development, but also being partially driven by the fact that we have some opportunities as we tear up that street for water main repairs in fiscal 2021 to really address potential changes that could change how those two spaces are connected. So those are the 5 priorities that we've identified. In the next following slides, we have, and Lisa, I don't know if you can flip forward to actually slide 11, which is the regional sewer one. We did a slide on each of these that really does a couple things. One, it ties, and it ties directly the initiative back to the master planning process, so that on regional sewer, specifically, there are 3 areas where in the master plan, a strategy is identified relative to regional sewer. We then really tried to codify what we thought the barriers to success were in terms of what we were facing as a community in order to be able to implement or come to a decision around this. And there's obviously high urgency, high dollars, and a number of dependencies. And also a need for a high degree of public agreement when it relates to regional sewer. So we laid out 3 next steps as kind of a initial stab, but really why we're here today is to talk to the Sewer Commission and get your feedback as to how the Master Plan Implementation Committee can be helpful in moving the conversation forward as to where we stand relative to regional sewer. So with there, I'll pause and take any questions, but also, Bill, I guess I'd direct it back to you around, have you guys thought about how Master Plan Implementation Committee could be helpful in assisting you guys as you deal with this particular implementation priority?
Well, I don't think we've had any collective discussions on this because we wanted, you know, since we had a couple of individual conversations, wanted to have you present before the board, and then we can dig in. I think fundamental to all of this is what the board's position is going to be relative to how we do a regional sewer program, if or how we would have any interaction with Hull, given their last communication to us. And if we didn't do anything to Hull, what are the possibilities of us doing a regional situation? And how basically how would we sell that to the town? That's my opinion. I have had some thoughts given the letter from Woodard and Curran, as well as the letter from the town of Hull, that going down Atlantic Ave, Jerusalem Road to Hull is going to be a gargantuan disruption to the town of Cohasset. And looking in this map, and the map that you have here is a perfect, you know, is there a way that we could do something that could assist with the outfall that comes out of North Situate into the Gulf River, but then potentially put a mini plant somewhere in North Situate that could take some of the treatment. Could it be possible to have an outflow pipe that goes off of Minot, certainly a certain distance offshore, and do it basically in that kind of continuum with respect to just the towns of Cohasset and Situate. That's my thought right now, and I certainly want Wayne and John to jump in on this as we go ahead.
Shall I?
Yeah, I was gonna say, either one.
I think when it comes to regional sewer discussions, it is incredibly complex, number one, but there are two fundamental questions you have to answer. First, what's the benefit to Cohasset? Bill just alluded to the possibility of discussing with Situate a solution to their sewage problems that might involve a new ocean outfall where both Situate and Cohasset wastewater could be discharged and to the advantage of both cities. The problem with a three-city solution is very fundamental, and it involves a loss of local control. Any three-city solution will involve some kind of governing body that will make decisions for the, quote, regional solution. In any case, Situate and Hull would outvote Cohasset, and we would, in essence, give up local control for what has worked very well for this town to date. A two-city approach would involve an intermunicipal agreement, such as we have with Hull, in which just recently we received a communication from Hull, and this is indicative of the degree or lack of cooperation between Hull from the very beginning of this discussion. They say they support it, but if they don't get what they want, they'll be sending notice they won't review our current agreement with Cohasset, and we'll be downsizing our operations. That's the kind of lack of serious discussion we have been seeking from Hull from the very beginning. We have asked questions numerous times over the last couple of years. How much is it going to cost to treat the flow that might flow to Hull in addition to what already goes there? And they have refused to even give an estimate of what that cost will be. So what we're talking about is signing on the dotted line. And by the way, the latest document from Woodard and Curran says, and by the way, send us another $100,000 per town so that we can continue, quote, working on this solution.
Is that for the phase 2, John?
I'm sorry?
Is that request from Woodard and Curran for the phase 2 potential analysis?
For them to continue, they want $100,000 from each town, yes. I would point out that they've collected probably in total over $400,000 so far. And if you look closely at their work product, none of it is anything more than a regurgitation of the data that we've sent them in the first place. I take my hat off to a consultant who's able to produce that kind of work product and collect that kind of money. I mean, I was in the consulting business myself for many years on both sides of the equation, as an executive in the nuclear power business and as a consultant to the nuclear power business. They have done very well for their bottom line, I'm sure, over the last 2.5 or 3 years. So my point is, I think there's room to discuss with Scituate realistic solutions to their problems and potential additional benefit to Cohasset. Anything that's on the table thus far does not benefit Cohasset, as far as I can see, in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, Katie, I'd like, it's Wayne here, and I'd like to add a couple comments. One is that in the build out that you mentioned in Cohasset, more than half of the 500 units are actually on private sewer system. So Avalon has a plant that I think is licensed for either 20 or 25,000 gallons and handles from the 225 units all of that flow. Toll Brothers put a plant in for their 45 houses or so that covers those houses. I see the ability to use smaller plants to solve issues that, by the way, have not been looked at all by Woodward and Curran in any of their plans. So perhaps there's a huge drive in North Scituate to try to put sewer in the commercial area, which is sort of like our commercial area and very important. But I don't see anybody looking at a solution for that, either the town or Woodward and Curran. So I think there's more looking to be done to see what solutions can be accommodated or created in the areas that we need this. So, and I was under the impression that there was going to be a $300,000 grant, and that money wouldn't be coming from us, but coming from the state if we all got on board. I do realize that 0% interest doesn't help at all if Cohasset's bill is $39 million. You have to come up with so much money that just paying the actual cost back is a huge burden on the ratepayers of Cohasset, because it would be too much in all these areas to take the total costs of the area that is being sewered and have just those people pay for it, which is what happened with the Little Harbor project, where the 475 houses all pitched in to do that. That can't be done if you're dealing with 50 homes or something like that. So, so I look at this as one of, I would have thought that sewer would have been involved more before the recommendations come out about doing this, because I think it is, you need the support of everybody, especially the rest of the town, to say, okay, we're going to spend all this money to do this environmentally important area, but we have other things that we have to look at.
So I guess, Wayne, maybe I can clarify. The position of the Master Plan Implementation Committee is that we need to get to a position relative to regional sewer, not what that position is. So part of the reason that we're here today is that I guess our concern was kind of twofold. One, kind of echoing some of your dialogue around costs. That certainly is an area that, as ratepayers, all of us as citizens of Cohasset are very interested in understanding the impact. But I do think that there's an impact whether we go it alone strategy, or whether we do some kind of regional agreement, whether it's a tri-party or a two-party agreement just with Scituate. The fact is that we will be facing costs for our facility as we look at the next permit that we enter into, and as we look to continue to support our plant. So we're not here today to say that regional sewer has to go forward. We're here today asking how we can be helpful in getting to a decision, because what we recognize is that this has been an ongoing process since 2017 that went through a feasibility study in 2018, went through a phase 1 comprehensive wastewater management plan that was published over a year ago. There was the set of new alternatives that were published in February 2020. And what I understand from listening to your conversations this spring, but also today, is that none of the 1 to 4 or 5.1 or 5.2 alternatives are satisfactory to the Sewer Commission. So I guess Master Plan is asking, how do we move forward in terms of getting to a point of view relative to what Cohasset wants? And the answer could be, we don't want regional sewer, but we need to answer that question.
Yeah, so if I may add some words, Mr. Beck knows that I would never overtly disagree with him in a public forum, but since I was volunteered to join the sewer board almost 9 years, or a little over 9 years ago, the main reason that I did so was to clean up the harbor, period. I thought that it basically is a cesspool for it. And if we ever got the ability to clean it in an economical manner, then it's worth it. I think it's part of our remit as commissioners to try to do it. I do agree that other than that, I'm not sure of the exact benefit that would come to the town of Cohasset. But I also think it would be worthwhile for us, since we haven't had a meeting, a regional sewer meeting with Woodard and Curran, or with Scituate in this case, and talk, have a conversation, see whether or not we can have any kind of hybrid solution that does not involve Hull, that would be economical and something that would be palatable to the voters in either town. I got a text message over the call here from a Mr. Branton, who I believe is with the sewer, excuse me, maybe with sewer in Scituate, asking about that. They were basically telling me that some of the ideas that I posed were not on their capital plan, and I'm sure they're not, because I just thought about them a couple of weeks ago. But I think it does behoove more discussion, and I think that I don't know who calls these regional meetings with Woodard and with the town of Scituate, but I'd be happy to join one if there ever was. And maybe Lisa, you could talk to Chris Senior and see if he could do that, and see where it takes us.
I support that.
Good.
One thing, maybe just to help you out, Katie, as far as the regional planning, obviously 4.2, the build out analysis is very important to the commission.
Yep.
For them to evaluate and to see where there's a demand and where there's a need. Currently, there's only one priority that I know of as far as the board goes, and that's basically the sewering of South Main Street to complete the coastline of Cohasset. The other priorities that were identified in the regional study are really economic driven. They're basically for the build out of route or related to economic benefits of the Route 3A corridor. And I noticed that's not really in your initial recommendations in the master plan. You're looking at village development and not so much Route 3A. So that's really kind of a disconnect between what the regional study had come up with as far as goals and what you have as far as a master plan. You know, is the build out of the Route 3A corridor, railroad area, is that one of the priorities in the master plan? Because that's in the regional study, that's targeted as priority areas, and the commission doesn't do those priority areas. You know,
So, I'm sorry, Dan. Go ahead.
Well, that was pretty much it. It was, you know, the build out analysis and the goals as far as economic development are very important to the master plan in terms of, you know, review for the sewer commission. You had also noted in there on your sheet 11, basically reduce environmental impacts of North Situate wastewater management and ocean outfall. They currently don't have an ocean outfall. It just goes to a little irrigation ditch, essentially, not irrigation, but a drainage ditch in the salt marsh. You know, an ocean outfall is not prohibited in this area. It's not part of the Ocean Sanctuaries Act. It's difficult to permit, true, but it is not prohibited. And in terms of the sewering of the North Situate area, I think that's a high priority to the sewer commission. It's just how is that done, and you know, what's the best feasible way of doing that is the big question. But that's for their community to decide. I think the last set of regional discussions or evaluations that were done, I don't believe the entire area in North Situate was proposed initially for sewering. And that was, I think, a drawback to the board. They really wanted the entire area sewered in order to protect the cold in the harbor.
That was certainly true of the 5.1 that both Hull and Situate came out in support of, that it only sewered S3, but did not sewer S1 and S2, which were important, obviously, buffer zones to the North River and to the total environmental solution. So what we were just to kind of clarify a couple things in terms of what we on the Master Plan Implementation Committee were talking about. The top left boxes were just relating back to the strategies that were articulated in the master plan. And the way that I look at that is there was in the master plan interest to make sure that we fully understood the build out impact of any regional sewer conversation. And I hear that being echoed by your board. In terms of the environmental impact, that strategy 2.5 that references an outfall pipe, I really look at that strategy as it's worded, basically coming out in support of finding an environmental solution, as Bill was referring to clean up the harbor. Because unfortunately, the only area that we can truly kind of control at this point is C3. S1, S2, and S3 are in Situate's hands, and yet we deal with it. We deal at Cohasset with the impact of their lack of sewering. So I, again, I'm here to try and understand what the Master Plan Implementation Committee can do in terms of being helpful in moving forward a dialogue to get us to either a yes or a no in terms of regional partnership. And it sounds like there's some interest on the part of the Sewer Commission to begin a specific conversation between Situate and Woodard and Curran relative to a looking at the alternatives that might develop around a two-party agreement. But I guess where that gets us is that all the work done in phase 1 and all 5 alternatives that have been laid out are now being put aside because based on the analysis, the Sewer Commission is not interested in any of them.
Well, I would also add that when this started, when the regional sewer started, we had a three-legged stool. Now we have a two-legged stool. So we have to fix that. And I think that again, in my opinion, I think that there is certain benefits of doing this, paramount of which is the cleaning up of the harbor. And I think that not having a meeting with the town of Situate, not having a meeting with Woodard and Curran present, they don't know what we're just talking about right here.
Yeah.
You know, they just don't know. Rob is on the phone, so obviously line, so he's listening in on this, but this is the first they know of it. And unfortunately, just due to the times, we haven't had a session. You know, and if the board agrees with me, I would ask Lisa to formally request of Chris to set up a regional sewer meeting as soon as possible. I think that's when we can sort of get moving, because not an excuse, but part of it was we didn't have a real idea of what, we knew that there was obvious interest from Situate, but now the position has been made very clear to us as to what Hull's position is. And that, in my opinion, would be a tremendous burden to the folks in Cohasset, if not the folks in Situate. I don't want to deal with that personally. So that's my opinion. I think if we have a meeting that, with Woodard, and we get down to the you know, the drivers that we want, I don't see any reason why we can't continue on.
I have a simple question, and that is, what contribution is the Woodard and Curran group going to make to an initial discussion between Situate and Cohasset, and how much will it cost?
I think that's a question that we have to ask. And we've had.
I'm talking about Woodard and Curran's involvement.
No, I understand. So, I mean, part of my understanding on the financials is that phase one was completed using the grant money that was put forward, that $200,000 grant that was funded in January of 2018. There was a annual town meeting warrant article that was passed by all three towns, each of us putting in $100,000 towards a phase two. And based on my conversations with Rosemary at Woodard and Curran, my understanding is that those contributions of $100,000 from each of the communities for phase two has not been sent. So I guess one of my questions back to Woodard and Curran is, if there is money still that we've allocated for phase two conversations between Situate and Cohasset that were allocated back at annual town meeting in 2019, that is potentially a funding source for these conversations that we're talking about in terms of a two-party agreement. So that, to me, is a piece of homework that we need to understand, because last I had heard that money had not been sent, and yet we have allocated it at town meeting.
Now, Lisa, can you ask about that?
Sure.
And Katie, another comment that I have is really on the fact that if you go back a year or so to Woodward and look at the report that they did on the estimated charges, and that's where the 39 million for Cohasset was. Well, Situate has a number there too, and to me, the combination of those two numbers is so much larger than it would cost us to do something that would serve both communities of Situate and Cohasset without that expenditure. And you know, we can build a very nice plant for under $39 million that would handle everything that had to be done. Yet that's the contribution that Hull wants to spend this money on their plant and put all new pipes in their streets and do all these other things that are going to help them in order, they say, to allow us or to be able to make it so that we in fact can send the flows there. So I think that's one of the things that we have not had an opportunity to sit down with Woodward and Curran, with just Situate and Cohasset, without the third party there.
Okay.
Right.
No,
And
I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to add that we were participants of the the regional meeting, but not we weren't driving the ship, I think, is the best way to do it. And I think if we want to do this, then any next meeting that occurs should be driven by the sewer board. And, you know, and the town of Situate, if they want to do that. And we tell Woodard and Curran what we want and how we want it.
I couldn't agree more with you in terms of the specific involvement of our sewer commission in these conversations. I mean, you guys have the statutory responsibility. I think all the questions that you're answering deserve to be answered, but I think it's creating that format that frankly we're comfortable having honest conversations. And what I'm gathering is that right now there's not a comfort level in terms of having some of those conversations with Hull in the room in terms of getting to a potential alternative 6 that might be of interest to Cohasset.
Yeah, I did send a copy of Phil's letter, I believe, to you and Tim.
Okay.
So you can pick up the letter, the sort of the mindset behind the town of the town of Hull, as they want to deal and how they want to deal with Cohasset and Situate from that letter.
No, I appreciate you forwarding that. But I do think, again, there's an opportunity if that annual town meeting funding for a phase 2 conversations has not been spent by Woodard Curran, because we did allocate it, that perhaps we have some money that is available in order to move these conversations forward. In addition, if that doesn't pan out, it's not a lot of money, but there is money that was allocated for consulting resources relative to implementation priorities around the master plan. There'll obviously be other calls on that, but at least it's a start in terms of funding if we're going to take a serious stab at addressing some of the concerns that your committee has.
Okay. Anything else you want to?
Question.
Yeah, Tim.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. There is a minimum amount of work that Cohasset must do over the course of the next several years. Is that correct? I mean, we are up against some issues with our current sewer system.
I don't think so. No, I mean, the biggest sort of issue that we were facing, say, a year ago was the replacement of our membranes, because they were beyond their useful life, and that was done at the beginning of the year. So now we have a fully functioning, almost brand new plant.
So we could live forever with just the existing plant that we have.
Well, forever was 10 or 12 years, yes.
And does that take into account a new nitrogen level in a new NDPES agreement?
No.
So that's one of the questions that I have as a citizen, is to make sure that we're really talking apples to apples in terms of like, what is our standalone cost as a community as we enter into, because eventually we're going to have to get a new permit. I mean, I understand that we've been living in limbo since 2003, 2004, 2005, but that won't go on forever. So I would ask that when we look at this, we look at it honestly for ourselves in terms of fully assessing the impact of the standalone or go it alone strategy versus a 2-party agreement with Situate.
Well, and I'm not an engineer, and I'll defer to Dan on this for a second, but I got to believe that virtually minuscule amounts of nitrogen that are entered into our sewer system, entered into the harbor because of our sewer outfall pipe in the harbor. The rest is coming from other sources, and probably predominantly so from the Gulf River.
Yeah.
Well, along those lines, Dan, let me interrupt for a second. I asked Dan to take a look at the cost, for example, of and this is just one solution for any nitrogen issues, of establishing an offshore discharge for the Cohasset sewer system. And at the same time, diverting through physical changes in the collection system for North Cohasset that currently goes to Hull under the intermunicipal agreement. The combined cost for doing those two things was conservatively estimated at $6.2 million. If you equate that to a bond For 20 years, it would involve a 3.6% increase in the rates that we charge our customers over the period of that bond life. And that also plays directly into the issue with discussions with Situate. If we and Situate shared the cost of an offshore discharge point, however that might be engineered and connected, it would further reduce that cost. And we would not have to be concerned about Hull's threat to end the intermunicipal agreement when it reaches its 30-year lifetime in 8 years, which is quite a ways into the future.
Yeah.
So we could
Yeah.
solve the nitrogen problem in one fell swoop because there is no nitrogen limitation on what you discharge into an open ocean water. You can correct me, Dan, if I've misspoken.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of criteria you have to meet. Permitting's not easy. We're not in the ocean sanctuaries area, so it's prohibited. You know, there's anti-backsliding, there's anti-degradation criteria that you have to basically prove through study. And those studies in themselves could probably take as much as 2 years to conduct suitably. So there is a time lag involved. There is some elaborate evaluation of the water system that you need to conduct. But in terms of constructing a new outfall, or in this case, both cases, either Situate or Cohasset, these are actually relocations of existing outfalls. You know, that is, that has been conducted and will be conducted. You know, the big thing with the Cove and the harbor, just to clarify, is, you know, the Gulf is nitrogen limited in terms of, you know, what is available in there. In fact, they'll probably set a TMDL for nitrogen that's even lower than what we have currently. In terms of the plant does a great job of removing all these constituents. It's not the plant that's the cause of the issue. EPA looks at this from the perspective of what's there existing now and what additional allocation the plant can contribute. And right now, it's already overtaxed with the influences from Situate and also stormwater influences, stormwater runoff influences. So EPA takes the perspective that, well, it's already overtaxed. We can't give you an allocation. And that's why the limits were recommended to be lower for the Cohasset wastewater treatment plant. And really what they had indicated during initial discussions is they wouldn't actually implement those if the town were to conduct additional stormwater remediation and do other measures. So really what it is basically a leverage against the town to create stormwater controls in the system to help reduce the nitrogen.
Yep.
Obviously, as John said, there is a simple solution, or not a simple solution, but there is a solution, is basically relocate the outfall. And that's something that should be considered. One final comment though, the IMA with Hull was actually signed in '96. So it's no longer 8 years, it's now 6 years that we have. And the time frame is getting shorter. Like I said, if we're gonna do something, it takes a good 2 years to permit and evaluate those types of things. So we do have a time frame. So in terms of Tim's comments, I think the town does have a window of time that they have to do some evaluation and assessment over the next 6 years or so.
Tim, you had another question?
That, this is more of a kind of a rhetorical one. It seems to me that there are two benefits in dealing with Situate. One is the potential for cleaning up the Gulf River and then Cohasset Harbor, and two, economic, by sharing costs. I see relatively little benefit to continuing dealing with Hull. And that's kind of a rhetorical question.
Agreed.
Yeah, no, I think you know, I think that bridge has been burned. So, all right. Do we have anything else from master plan at all? Any other questions or comments?
No, that's it. And listen, again, we're here to really, A, just let you know what the recommendations that we made are, but B, also be assistance or help as you guys try to come to resolution around what the options are for regional sewer. We're not here to sort of take away any of the statutory power that the Sewer Commission has, but to the extent that you want an advocate, you want resources, we recognize that we're here in partnership, nothing else.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Katie, and just one quick question. Is the 3A corridor something you're looking at as far as planning for additional growth in that
Yes.
area?
So the answer is when we look at economic development, it's going to look at all areas where there are assets. Obviously 3A is one of them. But if I was to be totally candid with you, I think the priority in terms of assets that we would first look at are relative to the village and the harbor, just because of the other things that are underway in that area. It's not to say that 3A isn't on the list. It's just not right now sort of top of the pile.
Right.
I have one other question, and that is, or a comment, and that has to do with North Cohasset. If we were to take the North Cohasset flow and put it into our system, and then obviously have another system or whatever we're doing with Situate, we would want to consider looking at Hingham, because we may want to take the flow from Hull Street that's on the Hingham side with us and make them potentially a partner where it would help both sides.
I don't think we have the capacity to do that. And sewer South Main Street.
Yeah, not at this time.
Right, but if the solution ends up being more capacity at a regional plant, and we take some of our flows to Situate instead of what the plan was to the opposite way, only because it is a very inexpensive connection that they would probably want to do rather than lose. Don't forget, we're paying them something today to send the flows to Hull. So they're going to lose revenue that potentially could come to us.
From what I understand, I think Hingham was looking for a lot more additional flow as well. So they may be comfortable dealing with Hull and expanding that system too.
Mm-hmm. Be worth a telephone call to them too. So.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the time today, and we look forward to staying connected.
Very good. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
On to CJC.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's on from.
Is anybody in the audience that would want to make any comments or anything like that?
About CJC?
No, about the what we just talked about.
I think you're looking at everybody on the phone right now.
Yeah. No, I think if we can, let's just see if we can get another meeting with Woodard and tell them what our thoughts are and see where that goes. I mean, see how much money we have left and see what happens.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So, Rod, have you heard anything from DeLisi or anybody?
Well, if you had asked me that yesterday morning, I would have said no. But yesterday afternoon, Chris Sr. called me. We had a conversation, and then we got a three-way conversation with Jeff DeLisi as well. And so I got something to present, just to present, because it's an idea that's just starting. It is that there is a program, a state capital funding program called Mass Works Infrastructure Program. And it's a competitive bid process. Towns present their proposals, and the state allocates money. That is ongoing now. The application is due at the end of August. Chris is floating the idea that Cohasset apply for a grant on to extend the water line and the sewer line from Pond Street to Sawyer, and and construct sidewalks in front of the shopping center and then down Sawyer for a certain length as a grant application under this program, in which case, if accepted, it would be fully funded by the state. He says it ticks off about three of the goals of this program for this year, and it would obviously provide the new sewer line that could serve the CJC project. Let me see. Obviously, having it paid for by the state would make the developer, relieve the developer. What's left is then the connection fee issue. We have to discuss that, but if it helped the town in providing affordable housing units that would advance another one of the master plan goals, and it's environmentally appropriate because it would help Peppermint Brook. He was enthusiastic and is going to discuss individually with the select board and determine whether the select board would approve funding for someone to grant, make an application to develop a grant application that would be submitted, and that as a framework, could advance the project here. We discussed this. It was three lawyers, and we discussed it. And I said I would raise it and just outline it to the commission this morning. I don't know that we need a. If you've got thoughts, fine. If not, want to think about it, that's fine. But Chris is going to proceed on with the selectmen to see if there's traction, put an application together.
He wants the sewer commission to fund the application? No. Okay.
It's just the selectmen. Because part of this will be, obviously, a sewer commission issue, and he wants the commission to know that this is happening. So I'm here as a messenger. And
I hear you. That's fine.
It would have been, I think, very nice and probably another example of common courtesy if Chris had come to us as well. He offered, he offered to be at this meeting, and he said I could get him. I just thought this is a notice,
Gotcha.
if we want to connect him, we can.
Rob, wouldn't they need plans and everything done in order to file for the application? This seems like it has to be one of the shovel-ready type of projects in order to get funded, number one. And number two, isn't it going to approach a $2 million range or so for money if you're going from Pond Street? And you mentioned both sewer and water, but there's a 12-inch water main that runs down 3A. Would they really be looking for a new water main as well?
I believe so. There, again, this is, I'm trying to remember bits and pieces of the conversation, but there's a reference to it being an older water line that would need to be replaced. In those terms. sooner rather than later, and to have that done with state money rather than town money would be a good thing.
Yeah, so, Rod, they're thinking of bypassing the 3A piece and going across the street. Is that what they're planning on doing by the Shell station?
It looks like it's I've got a very, I can forward you to you what is a mock-up of the design, and it looks like the water line would. I don't know how specific the design is on this. I think it is coming together. I will forward it to you. I think this is coming together so quickly. Those questions haven't been resolved.
I don't think you need construction level plans, Wayne. I think it's just conceptual design and presentation as far as in a cost estimate. The primary drivers here, they actually have, they allow 10% of the overall grant amount for design purposes, design and permitting purposes. So, they anticipate that the final design would be after grant award.
You did a lot of work for the water department in past years. Do you see a need for the water main?
That one might be getting a little old. I mean, they're in the process now of looking at a lot of their water mains for rehab and replacement. There was a big program to reline them years back. That's still a possibility as far as an option. But it's, sometimes depending on the age, it's easier to replace them in the location. But, I mean, a lot of the water mains in town, you're probably gonna, start seeing some additional improvements, my guess. A lot of them were lined years ago, but that only lasts so long.
Rod, was there any discussion, probably not, given the folks you're speaking to, but of the precedent this sets that the next time we get on the borderline of a 40B compliance, or in this case, the special double secret probation 40B that they agreed to, that a developer can come in and basically, extort money to get it done?
I wouldn't say it was presented that way, Bill.
Yeah.
No, it's understood that this is, the affordable housing. We saw it on the on the screen share this morning. Affordable housing is there in the master plan, and one of the positives would be addressing that. Certainly.
Yep, MassWorks is for housing and economic development as the primary goals. Maybe what Chris is thinking is, the water mains targeted for replacement at some point in time, might as well get that funded too. But, I mean, it is a solution from the perspective that the ratepayers of the sewer system wouldn't be paying it. It is grant money.
Or I would think that any grant that comes from the state of Massachusetts is being funded by the inhabitants of the state of Massachusetts through their tax bill, right?
Sure.
So we are paying for it one way or the other.
Well, yeah, you're paying for it one way or the other, but it's not only coming from the sewer users.
Yeah. Let me just jump in. The application guidelines are looking for projects that would address mixed residential and commercial use, redevelopment of a previously developed site, and housing at a greater density than 4 units per acre. And so this would tick those goals from the program. There are other goals that it does not trigger. So now you know.
My only point though is, I mean, you don't want another party designing the sewer and then submitting it to you for approval. I mean, in terms of after the fact, I think you want to be involved in the process. So
well, we haven't been for a while now, so why start?
you know, but you may want to, you know, ask to be co-applicant if that's.
Well,
your
we have to
prerogative.
approve any drawings that are
You always
connecting
do.
into our system anyway. So I mean,
Right,
you
but
know,
instead of being in the back seat, I'm just saying be in the front seat so you know exactly what you're getting.
Well, one thing, Rod, that you may feedback, regardless how this works out, is that the terms and conditions that are set forth in the document we provided them in the proposed connection agreement that puts obligations on the potential applicant as well as the commission will not change, regardless how that pipe gets built, financed, or otherwise. He's going to have to sign on the dotted line, however it ends up, just so he doesn't misunderstand that.
Yeah. I think his position would be, this is what I understand from Delisi, that our estimate of the connection privilege and connection fee is $1.8 million, and their estimate of the applying Title V guidelines, and I don't know how he did that, but you know, they think that would come in at $1.4 million, and so they view this as a $400,000 gap, and are looking to negotiate that. That's all, you know, all I can say is that was the developer's position as Delisi expressed it.
Yeah. So Dan, do you have anything with regard to somewhat a reduction in our original estimate of $1.8 million as a result of your considering seasonal irrigation?
Yeah, I mean, I did look at it. It looks like, and I'm going to be very rough here because there's still a couple of different calculations, but we looked at different rainfalls and looked at irrigation periods, and you know, his water use at the facility varies all over the place, but looking at a projection method for irrigation water use, it would probably be a reduction, you know, of about 120,000 gallons per quarter would be the maximum irrigation demand for that facility. So I mean, I wouldn't give them the maximum irrigation demand because weather changes from year to year. But there would be a defined reduction that I could support for irrigation use at the facility.
yeah, one of the things that, sorry, excuse me, Dan, one of the things I think we should try to get from them is the greenery or the grass portion of that property as it relates to as a percentage to the total square footage of that property, and it's minimal. And any of us who have gone to Stop and Shop or have gone down there, I've never seen a sprinkler. I've been living in the town for 26 years. I've never seen anything irrigated. I see them watering plants on or around the Stop and Shop so they can keep them alive to sell them. And I don't think that should be borne on the ratepayers of the town of Cohasset. I may be wrong, but I just think that this, I mean, why don't we just, why don't we just give the whole thing to him for nothing, and we should pay for all of the construction in his plant? That's what we should do, because that's what it's going to end up, right? It's ridiculous.
Well, okay, sorry I asked the question.
It's all right.
But I'll give you something to digest in a day or two.
Well, the last one I got from you with the amended, it looks like it was an amended. You're down to, you went to 101.687 million based on a recalculation of something. I don't have a date on this.
Yeah.
You're going through the entire sewer privilege connection fee for commercial lots, the 37,500. And then you go the new building, Stop and Shop, 380 CJC, and the total recommended. So.
And I'll give you an updated calc with the assumptions on the irrigation. And that's a federal guideline, so it isn't established.
Right, but we don't have any real numbers from him as to what the irrigation piece that he has been charged by the water department, do we?
No, I have taken off his green areas. I've measured those, via aerial images. So, I mean, I do know exactly the extent of the acreage that he has there. And if you look at the green fences plus the islands, it's about 2 acres roughly. And that's the way I'm basing the irrigation.
Has anybody gone out there and verified that there is actually a sprinkler system there?
No, it's not always the easiest thing unless they're operating. And like you said, it's hard to know when they're operating. While Pam's here, has there been anything more from the state? Pam, you're mute, by the way, I think.
No, I'm glad you guys invited me to this meeting because I haven't heard anything. And I see the building going up and I've just been wondering, like, what's going on? Are they getting a sewer? Were they going to have an empty building just sitting there with no sewer connection? I haven't heard a thing. I'm like Bill, I'm just like so cynical of this guy. I just feel like he gets anything and everything he wants. And it's like, he's like Teflon, everything just rolls off of him, but.
Yeah, I mean, but he is very concerned with Peppermint Brook, so much so that he dumped all that really good stuff into the ground. It's got to be down there somewhere right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I just.
Yeah, I know.
So
I'm
Pam,
totally with you, Bill.
Pam, he has an agreement in front of him. All you got to do is sign it, and he's
Okay.
off to the races.
Yeah, I don't think he can. I think this whole thing with the reduction of the connection fee, I don't buy it. I mean, the number that he wants to go down is pretty much the same number of the construction estimate that he gave us, that Wayne found that he had, 75 million tons of asphalt going in on the project. I mean, I don't see it. I think this is it. This is what it is. We have adjudicated this thing to death and spent a tremendous amount of time on it. The number is the number. We're not biased towards his application in any way, shape, or form. It is what it is. That's it.
All we need is an application and his signature.
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely. We shouldn't even be talking about this anymore. If he wants to do something with the town, let him do it. What are we going to do?
And he really hasn't submitted a plan that is even acceptable. We've never seen a plan about where pump stations are going to be in the parking lot or how it's going to go out onto 3A. He had a pencil sketch one point that he's going to go to the opposite side of 3A. There's just nothing there.
I would like to make a motion, if the board would indulge me, that we ask Rod to send a letter to DeLisi saying that, that the calculations that we have provided, we have gone through, as well as his request for relief, and in our opinion, the charge is the charge, and we would like him to submit a formal application with plans to the board so that we can sign it and approve it.
And return the agreement.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But also include his signature on the connection agreement.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
An initial every page.
Which we will have to sign also.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Is everyone in favor of that?
Yes.
Yes.
I think we have to give him something that when he doesn't do it, he can't come back to us and say, oh, you didn't ask for anything, or you want to. The key thing is he waits till the last second and then he thinks, well, you have to give this to me.
Yeah, well, in this case, desire is not permission, and I think we just, okay, we're done. We're spending a tremendous amount of time and money on this, and
And by the way, he keeps talking about building his own plant. Why don't you continue with the plans with that? I don't
think you can.
Yeah, Rod, any observations?
Well, you're my client. I do what you say. I'm happy to do that. I had expressed the fact that, a lot of the frustration here is that the commission has not seen a plan, has not seen any proposals. that we have given. I said, there is an agreement there to be signed, and we haven't had a formal response to that agreement. I've got that frustration too.
Good.
Now, if I think at some point we should say that if they do receive some funding, and we've approved it, and the funding is not adequate to do the job, then he has to bear the rest of the cost, or we're not going to. I think it'd be very difficult for us to. Let's say he gets $1 million, and it's going to cost $2 million. We're not going to contribute 50% to this because we don't even have the money to do with it. And then he'll say, "Well, use the
The agreement's clear.
$1 on the permit."
Yeah, I think it covers that, John, and maybe and Rod, maybe you can verify that. But yeah, I mean, he's this is like a death by 1,000 cuts. I mean, he keeps, as Wayne, as you said, he keeps throwing stuff at us, and we just have to stop. We just have to stop the process. Okay, we agree. This is what it's going to cost. You sign it. You agree to everything, and then what you do with the town is what you do with the town.
The more I think about it, the more he's going to have in his dealings with the town would be probably to use the permit money to subsidize whatever's not done, which is not.
No, it shouldn't be that way. I mean, rightly so. We would get skewered by other people who want to do this, and then every other commercial applicant that comes before us says, "Well, wait a second, you gave him a nice little haircut here of like 25%. I want the same."
Well, the justification for a haircut here would be the 40B and the affordable.
Yeah, but we made an accommodation to him when we agreed to start communications with him back in January. That was our accommodation. Okay. There was nothing unless it was done off-site, offline, where there was any kind of financial relief planned, offered, given, whatever. That was never communicated to us.
I understand that. I'm just now I am reporting the conversation.
Is it true that a grant that we're talking about would have to go through town meeting in the first place?
No, I don't think so.
No,
grants don't have to. No.
They did the stuff around the common without going to town meeting. All the new granite and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it has to be under a certain dollar amount because I think we were gonna. I can't remember it right now, but.
Okay.
Okay.
Unless there's a local percentage, usually you don't have to.
Yeah. All right. So are we good on that?
Yeah. Dan, is your recalculation with the water usage for irrigation, will that affect the fee at all?
Not at this time. I mean, I'm gonna finalize the document, send it to the commission for review. But at this point in time, the commissioner says the fee is the fee at this point.
And it's the 1.8?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. That's it.
I don't know.
I mean, he's not to beat a dog on this one, but he has to prove to us it's not our responsibility to go out and research what portion of water is being used on islands and other things. That's not us. We're sewer. Okay, we take care of it after it goes into the ground, not while it's on the top. So, he's got to go do that himself, and he hasn't made a case for it. So, okay, I got a few more minutes, and then I've got to jump off. But could we move to grinder pump for a moment?
Do we want to have Rob tell them that they should be providing the data that they want on the outside watering, so that or just?
I think we're done. I mean, we've asked that at least twice, and nothing ever comes back. And they tell us to go to the water department.
I don't think they have any info.
No.
So, grinder pump. I sent a request to Michelle because I had her look at the grinder pump gazins and gazouts a couple of years ago. How close are we to break even on that? And the conclusion at that time was that we were very close to break even. Then we got a response from Don, which said, "You're way off. $1 million or some crazy thing like that." I don't know what numbers he was looking at, but I have not heard back from Michelle either. So I asked her if she had any recall of that. Maybe she's on vacation or busy or whatever, but we still don't know the answer of whether we're in balance with the fees we've collected and the money we've spent on the grinder pump program. And we need to get that straightened out. So lacking any input at this point, I suggest we just put that on the agenda for next time and move on.
And so, Lisa, to that point, can you get to Michelle and then ask, whatever, reiterate whatever John had asked her, and then also have Dawn be on the call as well?
Sure, for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sewer
So,
can-
I did send an info package out and something that could be laminated. John gave me some comments back. I put those in and sent it out to you guys.
Yeah, I thought it was good.
Obviously, this time
Yeah.
to make anything you want, but if you have anything, let me know.
So just to be
Yep.
clear, that lamination cost would be borne by the sewer department.
It would be.
Yeah. Do we have to go out to procurement to do that, Lisa, or how would we? And I know, but I don't know how we would do that.
I think it's a minor
I'm not
cost.
sure, I can ask
Yeah.
That should be,
how much.
It's probably like, I mean, I wouldn't think it's more than
Yeah.
I'm
It's
sorry, I didn't
thousands
hear
and
you.
thousands of dollars and not tens of thousands of dollars. I think we're okay.
Okay.
You said thousands of dollars?
It's probably in the range of 400 or 500.
Yeah. So that just good business practice is the
Right.
procurement thing.
Get too close.
chargeable to the grinder pump account.
If there's any money there.
Yeah, really.
Well, until we stop the fee, there's going to be some money there.
I think we're okay.
I do too.
I guess, let me just add one point here. The select board can authorize the release of the easements outright. That's based on the, the town meeting vote in 2011.
Yes.
Dan and I have been back and forth a little bit. What do we want the residents to sign a release accepting all of this? Now, as your lawyer, getting a release and closing it out is a very good thing. On the other hand, as a practical matter, getting people to sign something is a pain in the neck. Just the logistics of that.
Yes.
If there is a surplus in the fund, would we refund that to the residents? And if we were in that position, then we could say, in order to get this refund, here's the release you need to sign. That would, as your lawyer, that would be nice and tie it up in a bow for us. But I just put that out there as a possibility. You can't discuss it until we know.
Yeah. Sounds like there's no money to give back, so.
Yeah. Fine with me.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Likewise.
So the question is, if there's no money to give back and you want to try to get a release from each homeowner, that may be a difficult thing to accomplish. There may be people who don't want to sign a release and want to leave it in the town's hands. So the discussion should be at that point. Is it the easement released as far as our perspective? And and the commission proceed on that basis.
I mean, the easement certainly can be released, and terminate the maintenance arrangement. And there would be a bit of a muddy area. Well, here's a piece of equipment that's still on your property. And we say, well, it's on your property and it's yours. And again, as your lawyer, I would prefer not to be in that position. But
Well, on the other hand, you could do it the other way, and you could say, we will cease the quarterly fee as soon as you sign this document. And any excess in the fund at the end of the program will be refunded on a per capita basis. So
that would be okay if you put something in about.
I mean, that's not a carrot, that's a stick.
Right, but it would be good, something like that, that says that we will maintain it until you give it to us, or something. In other words, there's got to be something.
Yeah,
like,
and my question is, Rod, is there something when, so we send an easement to them, is there something in the document that says, from the time and date of the signature, it is yours, and now you have to take care of it, don't call this, that kind of thing, that they acknowledge the fact that they are now responsible for it?
well, releasing the easement is unilateral. I mean, we just do that.
Okay.
What I had proposed in the letter that says, and the fee will end, and when the fee ends, you're responsible.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to, be absolutely sure that we have, so we don't get a piece of paper back from the owner, the homeowner, that says, yes, I signed this, I agree, I know that, I acknowledge that the easement's over, I deal with everything.
That would be the
Yeah.
I'm just thinking it's a way so that, just to cover our bases, that's all.
That would mean going back out and asking for an affirmative release from them, which would certainly include that acknowledgement of responsibility. But has been noted, getting somebody to sign something, when there's not a check attached to it is problematic sometimes.
Yeah. All right. All right. I'm just thinking of a way, because we get people who call all the time who think, it's their pump, but they want us to take care of it. So I just want to be sure that we're, covered. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, if
release fees, the release of the recording fees. I mean, are we paying the recording fees?
you'd be paying the recording.
Yeah,
we are. Okay, so
yeah, I would. We very much want to have those recorded. So.
Right, exactly. Not given to them to record.
So we would have to then, Rod, if we need to get Board of Selectmen approval on this, we have to get on their agenda to present this to them, right?
Yes, that's what we discussed last week.
Yeah.
And I sent Chris a draft memo, so that he could schedule a selectmen's meeting which this would be discussed. So.
So again, I'm sorry, go ahead. So the cleanest legal thing is basically getting a release from the homeowners. And that makes Rod sleep at night if they sign a release. So the question is what incentives you have. If there's no money to refund, then the only incentive you have is a $125 fee. That may not be enough incentive to get people to sign off. $125 times 4 quarters. That's 2 service calls, or maybe 1.5 service calls from Mahoney. So
and frankly,
my recommendation is, after a certain date, the fee would be increased. And that would be a driving incentive to get people to actually sign the release. Because you're going to have less people, in the program if people are going to hang on and not sign off their releases. And there's going to be additional costs.
True.
or we just say we're not collecting the fee and not providing the service. And there is
Yeah.
End of
a
program.
bit of,
Yeah, it's ending. And that means we're not going to be billing you anything, nor are we going to be doing anything for you. Something like whatever, however you can more elegantly put it.
no, as a practical matter, I think that's a better way to go. And then understanding that there is, some gray area. If somebody claimed we didn't do something right back in the day and destroyed their grinder pump or something, but I'd rather, in the scheme of things, I want the release. If we can't have the release, I think we just pull the plug on the program and accept the fact that there may be some blowback, but we don't want to continue the relationship. It's much better to just cut it off.
So include the release with the initial package.
Okay. When will we be ready to do this?
As soon as we hear the goes in and goes out balance.
So we could set a date once we have that comfort on the money, and then we can get stuff printed up, and hopefully in between there we have a meeting with the Board of Selectmen, right?
Yep.
I mean, we are starting that because we have asked Chris to schedule a meeting.
Okay.
So.
All right.
I'm also compiling a master list too for the grinder pumps with everything, hopefully with the serial numbers for the panels and the pumps. And also I've requested from Mahoney, warranty, outstanding warranties on the pumps. So at least we have a master list to go off of. It's been a long time since that list was actually reviewed and audited.
Okay.
Okay.
I had a question regarding the whether or not to repair some pumps that are costing $1,600, and there's another a little over $1,700. Whether or not we want to repair them or replace them altogether. If we, so 44 Beach Street is one of them, and if they rebuild it, it's going to cost $1,742.87. It'll give it another, it'll extend its life 5 to 7 years. A new one costs $2,500, and it's 8 to 10 year life.
What's wrong? Did they say what's wrong with the pump that they have to fix it to that amount of money?
I don't have that in front of me. I can certainly find out. I have another one here that was a new one, $2,050, and the total to repair it is $1,608.
Lisa, could you scan those and send them to the board and Dan, excuse
Sure.
me, and then have, so we could take a look at them? And 44 Beach, how far down Beach is that? Do you know, is that?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little ways.
I think if it's over 50%, I'd put a new pump in.
Yeah, I would too. I just want to see what, was it misuse or, or is it just the thing died or what?
I mean, is that a town-owned grinder pump?
Well, Beach is part of Little Harbor District, right? Beach
Yeah.
Street? So it wouldn't be, right?
Beach Street. Yeah, that was Little Harbor. That's not a town-owned grinder pump.
I don't think that's a town-owned. Where was the other one, Lisa?
The other one was 10 Grace Drive, and that one was misuse, but we, Town of Cohasset has a one-stop policy, so they paid, so the Cohasset Sewer Commission paid for F.R. Mahoney to go out there, so they paid for the service fee for that, and they put another pump in an extra pump that we had, I think that Cohasset owned. And so the question was whether or not to repair this one or buy a new one to have a second one on hand.
What was the cost of the new one?
Was that the-
3,500 or so?
Pardon me?
Cost of the new one was 3,500?
2050.
2050?
And the repair was 1,500, right?
1608,
1608.
1608, so.
so makes sense. But, you know, you don't want to be in the grinder pump business either. But
Right, but
Right.
it's always nice to have a spare.
Right, but if they have, if they've already had one strike and this is a misuse, I mean, why are we paying for it?
Well, no, this is the same. So this is the pump that was pulled for misuse, but we
Oh,
paid
all right.
service call. But they put the spare one that they had, that the town of Cohasset owned, they put the spare one in. The question remains of whether or not to rebuild this one or buy a new one to have as a spare.
And
This
is that part of the town-owned program?
Yep.
It is.
Had that pump been replaced once already
With an E1. If Ephraim Mahoney was servicing
with
it.
the new one? Had it been replaced before?
I don't know what you mean.
Each one has to be
Replaced every pump in the town-owned program.
Right.
Had that one been replaced yet? Before
Yes.
this
We all
current?
have at this point. I think they
Well, if they all have, then we're not going to do it again, right?
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
you have
we've
the one
already
strike-
done it.
You have the one strike rule. Is this their first strike?
yes.
I mean, you give them one opportunity historically, and then you make the repair or replacement. If it's,
But were there ever repairs on it? I mean, if you go through, there's we've never gone there before.
Right, I don't think so, but I can look up the history on this particular pump.
3 what?
how do you have that, by the way, Lisa? How do you have the history?
All the calls to FR Mahoney were logged. And if I ever have any question, I'd contact FR Mahoney. They keep track by the serial number on the pumps.
Yep. So there's been 3 first times, right?
Pardon me?
There's been 3 times that Mahoney has responded to this.
Send us the data. We're wasting a lot of time.
Yeah, and guys, unfortunately, I have to jump on a call right now, so I'm going to bug out, but always good to see your happy faces. Okay, thank you, guys.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Bye. Okay, so I'll send, I'll gather all the information I can and send it to all of you to make a decision.
Yeah, I'd like to see that inventory you have or whatever of the calls.
You'd
Yeah,
like to see the what?
The summary of the calls, you have that on a spreadsheet?
Yes. Yep, I can send that.
Are we done?
I think we have, hang on one. Let's see, that was grinder pumps. So I had some questions and some concerns on the sewer connection application process and policy, not the policy, but the process itself. And the stops when it comes to signing building permits, sewer, there's a spot for sewer to sign. And some of them come to my attention, but as I'm getting these reports from the building department, some have been signed off by Bob Egan, but even though there was a sewer section to be signed off, I wasn't required to sign it, and the permit was signed, so I'm not sure what the disconnect is there. And I'm not sure at what point does sewer not have to sign. Well, I'm assuming that sewer doesn't have to sign on a building permit if it's not in a sewer district, if they're on septic. But my concern on the whole process is the stops on the permits. And looking at the sewer application, there is a piece of it that's supposed to be completed by the sewer commission. And since I've been here, we haven't done that. So is that still part of the process?
You're talking about the building permit?
I'm talking about two different things. I'm talking about first the application for sewer. So an application comes in, the applicant submits a drawing. It gets reviewed by, well, it has been getting reviewed by Jason Federico, the plan, and then they submit their $1,000. Once it's approved, the $1,000 gets deposited. And then what happens? So the drain layer is supposed to fill in a piece, and then there is a piece on the sewer commission. Have you looked at the application?
Would you go back? You said it's reviewed by who? Federico?
Federico, yep, for to see if it's the drawing, to see, I guess, for the drain, you know, where the connection is. And
he's not acting for the sewer commission.
So so is it Dan that should be reviewing all the sewer applications and the connection, the drawings?
Yes.
Okay. So from when I started, when I first, pardon me?
I asked Wayne, did I misspeak when I said yes? I mean, that's the way we've always done it in the past. When we had real meetings, we would sit down and review the drawings, and away we went. But I don't recall ever having agreed as a commission to have Federico do that task for us. Do you?
I think that's been going on for several years now.
That has to be coming down from the town engineer down to him to do it, but it's not something that I've ever said or authorized or anything like that. So
okay.
I was smiling really more that things like this happen, and then they'll happen for 6 months, and then all of a sudden no one reviews it and something else happens, and it's just not the way things are.
And that's kind of the way I feel that it has happened. So when I stepped in November, that was the process. So I had some applications that had gone through from me. I was following the process.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to review it with everybody, because I'm getting a little bit uncomfortable with the way the process is.
You raise a good point, and any sewer applications that come before the sewer and for which we charge them $1,000 have to be reviewed by our engineer until we change that.
Okay.
But there have to be 10 houses under construction right now that I have no clue whether they paid a sewer permit or anything. Just
exactly.
And so where does that go? I mean, we have not received, you know, sums of money for EDUs in the last, you know, that.
Right. Well, we're talking about two different things. One is those that come in with a sewer application with plans to the sewer commission. And then we have building modifications, building permits that don't seem to get funneled to Lisa.
Right, exactly. And that was the other part of my point.
And we need to, I think the best thing to do, I mean, we've done this several years, I mean, several times with the building department. You need to outline exactly which permits you want to see. You know, any expansion of a water use, any expansion of a bedroom count, any auxiliary structures that may generate additional, that have water service or sewer service. I mean,
Right.
there's set criteria. If it falls into one of those, it should come before the board for signature.
Would you be able to help me come up with that list?
Yeah.
Yes. Good. So
Because that would
Dan,
be good. I'll definitely feel more comfortable with having something concrete that I can work with.
Right,
Good.
we can post it on the board.
I have a list just recently, just actually from yesterday, from Amy. I haven't had a chance to look at them yet, but 150 Beach Street, 11 Sheldon Road, 441 King Street, and 44 Atlantic Ave are all building permits waiting to be signed off by the sewer commission. So I'll take a look at them and question whatever I have to question.
441 King Street is probably the building that they built as a garage, but I see that they have a nice second floor and stuff on Lily Pond that the building inspector may have even.
Right. So
picked up.
here's another part of my question though, too, on signing off for the building permits. So this is, there's different steps to the building permits that are signed off. So what I've done before is if they don't have a drawing for the sewer connection or an application in, I'll put it as incomplete. This is I'm signing it off as incomplete, and then I'll put in a note that I need the application, I need the fee, and then eventually the connection fee, policy fee of the $37.5 or whatever amount that would be based on the bedrooms. Is that adequate enough, or do I not sign off on it?
Well, you should be getting an as-built drawing too, because if you don't get the as-built drawing before you sign off, then you're never going to get it. So
I mean, you need to reject those as incomplete, just like you said. If you don't have the information,
Right.
it can't be reviewed. So you just reject them as incomplete and don't sign anything off. You know,
Okay.
until they submit the materials that you need to review or I need to review.
And so to add to all this is when say a new house is being built, they have a 4-bedroom going in. It's a new house, new connection, so it's $37,500. At what point is that due? I know on the thing it says within 60 days. Is that within 60 days of the application being approved?
Yes.
Or 60 days of breaking ground?
I think it should be before a certificate of occupancy is given out, meaning
I think the way it stands now, it's 60 days from the time of application approval.
Right.
yes. That's my understanding.
Unless you want to vote on a revision to that, you know, 50% now.
Well,
50%
They can
Right.
always, we've had cases in the past where they've had delay in construction and so forth. And we have reviewed and approved an extension. But
Right.
it's 60 days from the day the application is approved, it's due and payable. Otherwise, they got to come before the commission and get an extension.
Right.
Okay, so due to COVID, so there's one property, for the life of me, I can't remember the name of the product. 120 Pleasant Street, I think. No, that might be Dunkelberger's. Bear with me for one moment. I think I have it. might be Black Horse. Of course, I'm not gonna be able to find it. In any event, they submitted the application in November. And then, of course, due to COVID and all that, it's been delayed. So the drain layer is going in, I think, over the next week or so to lay the drains. And so originally, so it's been delayed. So obviously it's been in November. It's been what, 9 months? But they haven't paid that fee yet. They paid the $1,000 to have the application reviewed. And not his argument, but his point of view is, I don't even have sewer. I'm not using the sewer yet. So why do I have to pay this now? That's his argument of paying.
That's why he needs to come before the commission, make his case, and we'll consider it.
Okay. Okay, I'll let him know.
Yeah.
The question is though, is the drain layer going to go and install it without the payment being made?
Right.
Because the drain layer is already planning to install the sewer to the building.
Yep, and I think that another, from the sewer commission's point of view is, what if he runs out of money, right? What if he runs out of money if they don't pay it up front?
Who's the drain layer?
On this one, I think it's Pompeo.
Yeah, I mean, what I do is I notify Half Pompeo that he can't proceed with the sewer connection because the fee hasn't been paid.
Right, and that's what I did, like, I did that 2 weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
And then I've been back and forth with the owner. So I will let the owner know, and the owner's fine. He was just saying that, that he just needs to know. If he needs to run a check down right away, he'll run a check down right away.
Well, your Dunkelberger people up on Pleasant Street, they're the ones that want to delay the payment, right?
Right, they're going
Your house is
through
probably almost
the
done.
they're going through the old Colony company.
Oh, that's what they're gonna do, to get the money?
Yes.
Okay. But they're probably in the house now, aren't they? Are they occupying the house?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, okay.
We can talk about it when you get it before the commission, or is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just notify Half that, you know, as a licensed drain layer, he is not authorized to tap the sewer or to install the service connection until the owner gets it.
Okay. All right, I think that's it. Oh, there was one more thing on the agenda.
The business?
So, and this might be with, I'm going to, Bob Higgins from Hingham is on the call still. Bob, are you still there?
Turn on his,
If you can unmute, that would be great. Oh, there we are. So Bob had sent an email to Michelle about the 26 Lambert's Lane tie-in. That was the one that the John Ormond, who is a potential purchaser of that property, had asked about connecting to sewer. He wanted assurances that he was able to connect to sewer through Hull Street. And then the sewer commission told him that he needs to get approval from Hingham. And then, so Bob had sent Michelle Leary this email about, and I think I sent it to you guys via email. So I just wanted to connect us all together and
the answer I sent was he needs to obey the rules for applying for a sewer connection.
right,
Once he applies for it, we'll act on it.
right. But I think Bob some questions regarding.
Yeah, good morning. I have a question about this this connection and so forth and so on. No, we just had a meeting recently, and John appeared before us, and he wanted provisional approval to connect. And I read the email on this and everything else, and I said to him, do you have your engineered plan all approved by the Cohasset Sewer Commission? And he said no. So he gave us a proposed plan and stuff, which is not an engineered plan. So this is really in your ballpark, and we'll do whatever we need to do to assist with that, okay? But it's in your ballpark, and I think this developer's a little aggressive and has said some things that, you know, they're not true. But it's in your ballpark, and it's up to you guys, okay? And if we get a yes back after your review, you know, certainly, you know, if you have capacity and he's in your sewer system area, you know, we'll go with it. But I can't give him provisional, not knowing what you guys really want. So
Right, and
you know.
and Bob, you're right on, because we don't give provisional approvals either. And my response to Lisa's inquiry was, all he's got to do is make an application, provide the appropriate documentation, and we'll act on it. We have said that those are our rules. Just follow them, you know. The problem is this is somebody who's trying to sell property and they want to get approval in advance without applying for a connection that someday somebody will get one, and that's just not the way it works. So.
Okay, I do have one other issue that I need to discuss with you guys, and I'm not sure how to go about it, except that it does involve the intermunicipal agreement between Hingham, Hull, and Cohasset. I know that's 6 years up the line, but we're starting to take a look at that right now, and you guys still have capacity, of course, but our district, our Ware River Sewer District for Hingham is closed to new connections. Okay?
Yeah.
So we're trying to plan ahead and trying to make a boilerplate plan that, because we don't know how much more capacity we're actually going to ask for. And I don't know if you guys would consider a joint meeting or a discussion about additional capacity from your side. And if not, can we have that capacity that you don't want? And that way there, we won't have to increase our current contract or the municipal agreement with the town of Hull. And I'm looking at all the maximum daily flows and the average flows and so forth and so on. I want to be able to also understand, you guys, that our infrastructure and our pumping station has a maximum capacity of flow to send to Hull. Whether you're interested in that additional capacity or not, I don't know. I'd like to know that at some time, maybe within the next year or so, as we prepare to start negotiations in probably 22. So, and that's very important to us, because if we can recover capacity not wanted in Cohasset, that would make a huge difference. But if you want additional capacity, then we have to take a look at our infrastructure, okay, and pumping station, just to see exactly where we are. And it was a very excellent discussion this morning. I watched the whole thing, and it was very well done. And you guys have, it's very unique what's going on the regional sewer issue. It really is. And I don't know what the answer is, but I know you guys could figure it out.
Well, you put your finger on the answer, because we need to make the decisions on our end before we can responsibly respond to the question you just asked. If the You know, the letter we got from, or email from Phil in Hull was essentially a threat saying, if you don't sign on to the regional agreements, then we're going to cut you off when the current agreement expires. So, I mean, that was,
That, you know, with that, that's a
Pardon?
question, that's a league, that's for the lawyers to think about, worry about.
well, they certainly
but-
would get involved before it's all over, but
Oh, of course.
no,
they will.
it's a good
But,
question. And
Yeah, no, and I, on the regional issue, it's going to be very difficult. I wish we had access to another system that would talk to us. And that was the other question that I had for you. I'm planning to approach the MWRA, quite frankly, on the sewer issue in Hingham.
yeah,
Okay. We haven't had a public meeting or anything, but I want to approach them to see about the regional issue in our area. It's not only for economic benefit, but environmental benefit and so forth and so on. But I don't know if that issue is acceptable to you guys. I just want you to know I'm going to go forward with that, but I don't want to include Cohasset if you're not interested in my idea. You know, if you feel that it would be inappropriate for me to at least include Cohasset in the regional area. I don't know the response I'm going to get. They may not even want to talk to me, but currently they have a capacity limit, of course, at the MWRA for treatment. And so we have to look at that and so forth. But that's the plan if you're interested.
Well, I think it's
Something
something
more to
Wood
think
would
about.
encourage. Yeah, Woodward and Curran should be looking at this as an option too, but I'm not sure that it's in their best interest to do it.
Right. I think you got to leave your doors open. You know, you would certainly be looking for a buy-in cost with MWRA for your flow, but it's not going to be $36 million. You know, and it would be a potential option if Hingham is redirecting its Weir River area flows that MWRA. Certainly, you could redirect North Cohasset and, you know, part of Little Harbor, if need be. And if it's an affordable alternative, in theory, that could open up more capacity for yourselves at the plant.
Yep.
I think it's a door that you should probably leave open, and I would recommend that when Bob approaches them, that the potential for Cohasset also sending flow should be put on the table.
Can you lay down the fundamentals in a short one-page document regarding
Of course.
options? Dan?
Yes.
Good.
Okay. I think also that Hingham, and I don't know what Cohasset, but Hingham is we're going through an extraordinary growth in our town in the last 25 years, both residential and some commercial. And I have a third sewer district that we're going to be talking to the MWRA about. So just to let you know up front, that was my plan, and I can have a number of discussions with them. And at this point, you know, I'm not asking for money, or I'm not asking for anything other than dialogue, okay? Because you guys seem to have a very good idea of what's going on, and you're more involved in that than we are. So that's where I'm going, and I'll try to send you a little blurt as I progress, or if I get an appointment or what have you, just to let you know what's going on, okay? If you want me to send it to Dan or to yourselves, just let me know, and I'll communicate to whoever you want.
Great. Keep in touch with Dan.
Thank you,
Okay,
Bob.
thank you very kindly. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Thank
Okay.
you as well.
Are we done, Lisa?
That's it. Yep, that's it. So it is now 12:06.
Wayne,
And
anything more?
Motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.